So in this video, we're going to look at dividing or rationalizing as well, just with more complex problems than last week. So in order to do this, remember when we rationalized, we wanted no roots in the denominator. Well, when you've got a binomial in the denominator, you can't just multiply by the root part because you'll still end up with roots somewhere. So we have to use what is called the conjugate. So if our denominator looks like a plus b square root of c, or there can be more square roots, basically a binomial with roots, the conjugate is a minus b square root c. So you take the exact same binomial from the denominator, but you change the middle sign. A could be negative, that's fine, it stays negative in both. This could be a negative, so you're going to use a positive. Doesn't matter. You're changing the middle sign and only the middle sign of only the denominator. Because when we go through and we FOIL that out, it's a difference of two squares. You might remember when we did a plus b times a minus b, and we FOILed those and we multiplied them out, and we got that a squared minus b squared. No middle term. Well, if there's roots and I square them, they're gone. So by using this conjugate, we're creating that difference of two squares, we're making all the roots go away, and then we've rationalized it. There could still be crazy things on the top, and in fact, most of the time, you're going to get very weird answers for the numerator. Okay, you might have 4 terms with 4 different roots. That's fine. The bottom will be a single number. No roots, just a number. So, let's look at our first problem. Negative 5 square root 5 over 5 minus square root 2. Now, your problems don't always have the parentheses there. If they're not there, put them there, because that's what's going to help you remember to FOIL, to distribute, things like that when you are multiplying. So here's our problem. We need our conjugate. The conjugate goes from based off this denominator, and we write it exactly the same, but we change that sign. So instead of minus, we turn it to plus square root 2. And remember, when we're multiplying, rationalizing, whatever we do on the bottom, we have to do on the top as well. Okay, so now we just start to multiply. On the top is just going to be plain distribution. So negative 5 square root 5 times 5 gives us negative 25 square root 5. And then we take that times square root of 2 minus 5 square root 10. So that's the numerator. Now we need to work with the denominator, and we're going to FOIL it. So 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times square root of 2 is 5 square root 2. Negative square root of 2 times 5 is minus 5 square root 2. And negative square root 2 times square root of 2 is negative square root 4. So, first step, find the conjugate. Second step, multiply it out. Now we start seeing what can and cannot simplify. So if we look on the top, square root of 5, square root of 10, neither of those are going to simplify. On the bottom, okay, 25 is good. Square root of 2, square root of 2, those don't simplify. However, these two are the same, but one's positive, one's negative. So negative 5 and a positive 5, those are going to cancel each other out. So they're gone. Square root of 4, well, that's just 2. So if we rewrite this, we've got negative 25 square root 5 minus 5 square root 10 on the top. We still have our 25 on the bottom. Middle terms canceled out, and we have minus 2. Notice, roots are now all gone. So let's go ahead and write our final answer over here. We've already said can't do anything with the top. So 25 square root 5 minus 5 square root 10, and then 25 minus 2 is 23. Now, one of the things that we want to do when we think we're done is check and see. We've kind of looked at this when we were doing simplifying with fractions, and there were variables in there. We want to see 25, 5, and 23. Do those 3 numbers contain anything alike? No. The 25 and 5 do, but since 23 can't divide by 5, that is our final answer. Okay, let's try a couple more. I know these ones are tricky. So we'll do another one where there's just a single monomial on the top. Maybe we'll do a little easier one that doesn't have a root. So 5 over -4 plus 4 square root 3. So I put it in my parentheses right away. Next step, remember, is find the conjugate. So based off the denominator, that negative stays the same. Remember, we're only changing the middle one. And then we write that on the top as well. Okay, now we're going to distribute. On the top, that gives us -20 minus 20 square root of 3. On the bottom, we're going to FOIL. So -4 times -4, -4 times -4 square root 3. That's positive 16 square root 3. When we do the inside, we're going to get -16 square root 3. We can already see those are going to cancel out again. And then last, we get -16 square root of 9. Now, depending on how you like to work through these, I showed you the last one. Here, I'm going to do kind of more scratch work. I'll still show my work, but I'm going to keep this a little neater over here. So on the top, we can't change anything, so we'll leave it. On the bottom, the 16 is going to stay. This 16 square root 3 and that one, those guys cancel out. If they don't cancel out, that tells you you've made a mistake, okay? So look for those. And then here, we've got a -16. Square root of 9 is 3. -16 times 3 is -48. So I'm going to put my -48 over here. Okay, so 16 minus 48, if we do our next step, actually, let's write this over here. -20. And 16 minus 48 is -32. So now the question is our problem completely simplified or not? Well, remember, we have to look at those three numbers. So here I have a -20. Here I have a -20 with my root. And on the bottom, I have a -32. So they're all negative. So that tells us we can get rid of the negatives. They're also all even, so they could definitely divide by 2, but there's a bigger number. They can all divide by 4. So I'm going to divide all three of those numbers by 4, because all three of them divide by 4, and our final answer is -5 minus 5 square root 3 over, positive 5 plus 5 square root 3 over 8, because we got rid of the negatives as well as dividing by 4. So when you think you're done, check the numbers. Everything that's not under a root, if they all divide by the same thing, even if it's just a negative, then you can simplify more. It's kind of like we don't leave 2 over 4, we simplify it to 1/2. We don't want to leave this, we want to simplify it as well. So that's what we do if the top is just a monomial. Those are the easier kind. You'll have more of those on your homework than the other type. However, we've also got ones where we've got a binomial on the top. So these ones they're not trickier, they're just more work and give you weirder answers. That's all it is. But there's also a few more places that occasionally people will make mistakes. So if we have -5 minus square root 3 over 3 square root 3 plus 5. So binomial on top, binomial on bottom. Let's put in our parentheses. Remember, we only want the conjugate of the denominator, okay? So I don't care what's in the top. The top is fine. We care about the bottom. So the conjugate here will be 3 square root 3 minus 5, change that sign, and then the exact same thing on top, okay? They have to be the same. They have to deal with the bottom. We don't care what's right here. We'll work with it, but we don't care what's there. Okay, so now we're going to have to FOIL on the top and the bottom, which is where we get a whole lot of pieces. Go slow. Take your time. It's okay. You can do it. Okay, so FOIL. We're going to get -15 square root 3. Outside, we're going to get a plus 25. Inside, we're going to get a -3 square root 9. And last, we're going to get a 5 square root 3. Okay, so there's our 4 pieces for the top. Looks messy, but we can already see we got some like terms, we got some perfect squares, so it'll simplify. In the denominator, we're going to get 9 square root 9 minus 15 square root 3 plus 15 square root 3 minus 25. Once again, we got some perfect squares, we got some like terms. So it looks weird, but it does simplify. So if we look on the top, here we've got a square root 3, here we've got a square root 3. So we can combine those guys. Negative 5 plus 5 is negative 10 square root 3. Here we have a 25. Here we've got a square root of 9. Well, square root of 9 is just a 3. Negative 3 times 3, that's positive 9. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. 25 minus 9, well, we'll just write that down so we don't lose track. So we have a 25 minus 9. In the bottom, well, square root of 9 is 3. 9 times 3 is 27. Middle guys cancel out again. Minus 25. So sometimes you can do a lot of the work in your head and not have to write as many steps out. If you want to write out more steps so that you don't make the mistakes. Okay, now we can combine our like terms. So negative 10 square root 3, 25 minus 9, that is 16. Am I looking at my right problem? Yes. Wait. Yes. Okay, 25 minus 9 is 16. And in the bottom, 27 minus 25 is 2. Okay, so we've done all our combining. Remember, last step is look and see, do they have anything we can simplify? So if we look at the 10, the 16, and the 2, can anything break down? Well, they all divide by 2. So that gives us negative 5 square root 3 plus 8. And sometimes that is what will happen. You'll do all your division and all of a sudden, no denominator because things simplify. Same thing happens with a fraction. Sometimes if you simplify a fraction, it becomes a whole number. For example, 6 over 3 is just 2. So it can happen. Okay, let's try one more. I know these ones are a little tricky. So let's go through another one together. Okay, we've got negative 1 minus square root 5 over negative 4 minus square root 3. So first step, let's put in those parentheses, okay? We don't want to forget them. Conjugate of the bottom, remember, and only change this middle sign. Don't worry about the negative in front of the 4. It's going to stay. So negative 4 plus square root 3, and then same thing on the top. Okay, time to FOIL on the top. First, outside, inside, and last. Now this time when we see no perfect squares, no like terms, that just means they're all going to stay in the top, and we can't really do a lot with it. And that's okay. You will get very weird answers for these. On the top, not on the bottom. So when we start to FOIL on the bottom, first, outside, inside, last. There we've got like terms, there we've got perfect squares. So we're on the right track. We already said we can't do anything with the top, so I'm just going to copy it down. Now on the bottom, we've got our 16. Middle terms still cancel out. And then square root of 9 is 3, so we're going to have minus 3. So if we keep going, one more step, hopefully it'll fit. 5 minus 3 square root 3 plus 4 square root 5 minus square root 15 all over 13. Now 13 is not going to simplify with these, plus looking, there's not a coefficient on the square root of 15, so that tells us we're not going to be able to simplify because there's not a number there. So there's our answer. So you can get really long, weird-looking answers like this, and that's totally fine. So we've gone through some examples, so now you can finish the worksheet or do the second Quizalize, go on to the quizzes, Practice these. If you have questions, let us know.